The first show was Karen Shaw and two women who were doing one-of-a-kind books, plus a raft of published stuff. One of the artists whose published works was in the collection wanted to read from her dream journals. That was Martina Abalea. So she performed, and the performance art program was born. The artists, myself included, didn't really make any distinction. You know, if the idea is appropriate to a book, you do a book. If the idea is appropriate to a performance, you do a performance. So we started showing performance art, but I didn't know what it was called yet. So we called them artists reading. Of course, none of the artists were just reading. They were always doing something. So the artist reading series turned into the performance art program, and the one-of-a-kind artist books turned into temporary installation work. In 1980, about 5 years in, the uptown institutions were still not paying attention to the downtown community, nor were they paying attention to the history of the contemporary artist book movement. So I started doing historical shows, which is a museum function. We didn't own anything. We borrowed everything, and I had to get grants. So my main job was grant writing. I had a curator. Jackie Apple was the first curator of Franklin Furnace. She moved to Los Angeles in 1980. I don't want Franklin Furnace to be my Martha Wilson's taste. So I got up a peer review panel process, which we still use to this day, to award shows and performance art gigs. After we went virtual in 1996, 97, we kept the performance art program, but made it into a grant program. So we give money to crazy performance artists and they do their work. We don't have a venue either. So we try to help them to figure out what is the venue that would work. In the early days, the archives consisted of a printed press release, an announcement card, maybe a poster, slides of the installation or the performance work, and video if we could afford it. We have about 20 videos from the earliest days. Then in the 80s, artists started to realize that they couldn't apply for grant money unless they had video. So video became not cheaper, but certainly more used. Nowadays, ironically, in the office, we have 2 aisles full of documentation from the first 40-some years of Franklin Furnace's existence. We're proud of the fact that we pioneered a lot of artists who went on to become famous and influential practitioners in the art world. Shirin Neshat would be an example of an artist whose first solo exhibition in New York was at Franklin Furnace. So she would come over every single day and tweak her show. There was film. There were her distinctive photographs with Arabic lettering on them, metal cut out, a giant poster announcement that was like a tabloid-sized photo announcement. What I like about the documentation of those early days is that the ideas that she exhibits in her mature work are right there in her early practice for all to see. We now give grant support to emerging artists provided by Jerome Foundation. Jerome Foundation is located in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and it was founded by an artist named Jerome Hill, who wanted to support artists at their early point in their careers before they became rich and famous. So that meshed pretty well with our role in the art world, just to identify artists right out of the slime and give them a platform on which to show their stuff so that they become world famous Ida Applebrug later on. Find other crazy people like yourself. What was so great about New York, and one reason why I can't imagine living anywhere else, is there were so many collegial people whom I still love and hang out with. Why would I move? It's fake family. You create, there are enough weirdos in New York that you can create a network of people who are supportive and caring because they're all just as crazy as you are. I started working on a PhD, and I took the idea for my PhD to my advisors, 2 male English guys, and they rejected it. The idea was to draw a graph or build a model for each one of Henry James' novels. I was quite sure he must have done something like that in order to develop the structure. Today, we admire and understand interdisciplinary studies, and now I think I could probably get my PhD thesis approved. But at the time, they said, no, this is not English literature, this is visual art. And I got all huffy about it and went across the street and made an appointment with Gary Neal Kennedy and said, can I have a job here? And he said, well, actually, the English teacher is leaving, so I could have her job. It's called Sequential Art for Kids. Started out with artist books. Diane Postoyan was teaching English to children from mainland China by having them draw and then narrate stories in book form. And we eventually had 19 artists doing sequential art forms. The other thing is a lot of the arts and education programs around the city were doing painting and sculpture, and that's not our thing. So it's called Sequential Art for Kids, and ultimately it had filmmaking and animation, actually collecting and museum display is one of the classes, theater games, performance art, obviously. We're an organization in residence at Pratt Institute. We got a C grant from Pratt Institute to study if performance art is uniquely able to convey information to children. We're doing this with a performance artist who's got certification from the state of New York, so she's allowed to go into the classroom. Now the coronavirus pandemic is upon us, so we're going to do it as a set of videos. The impulse is there to examine whether performance art can be an efficacious way to get ideas across to students. What's so great about kids is they don't care. They're non-judgmental. They just want to have fun. So, and we just want to have fun too. So, and if they learn stuff and they don't even realize they're learning stuff,